Hi, it's Nicole, and today I'll be doing a review of Astral Season Beastly Season by Tahi Saihate, translated by Almony. This book was published by Honford Star, and this video is part of the Indie Press project hosted by Stephanie over at Time to Read. I mentioned this book in one of the videos for Invisible Cities when I talked about some of the translated new releases coming up, and this one just came out on the 15th of this month. It's actually pretty rare for me to read a book that has just come out. Like, I'm not really much of a new releases person, I'm much more of a backlist reader. But this was pretty conveniently part of both Indie Press Project and Invisible Cities, essentially, because Honford Star is the January pick for Invisible Cities publisher, and Japan is one of the countries that we're reading from for Invisible Cities. I think this might have been the only Japanese book on the Honford Star roster, so wanting that crossover between Invisible Cities and Indie Press Project was part of why I picked this one, but also I just really like this genre. To explain a little about the book, a Japanese singing idol is believed to have killed her boyfriend, and then when two of her biggest fans hear about this, they decide to go on a killing spree, a copycat killing spree, to make the police think that they did it instead of her. That is the general gist of what happened, but I would actually say that it kind of felt a little bit misleading for what it actually involved. A lot of the actual crime that happens is the first part of the book, and the second part of the book actually deals with, I guess, some of the social fallout of that. The major themes in this book are around youth and who you become, and it looks at intense fan cultures and different types of fans. It also looks at how we judge others, I suppose, and particularly how young people judge others. I feel like it could have gone deeper in some of those themes, and there were definitely points of insight that I really liked, but overall I would say this book was super melodramatic. It was like watching a really over-the-top anime. I don't know, for me sometimes reading that kind of thing can be fun, but sometimes it also felt really cheesy. There was a point where once everyone knew who the killer was, they were debating whether or not the killer was a good person, and it was like, I know they killed people, but maybe they were still a good person. And then it's like, well, maybe they were a good person, but I don't know, they killed my best friend. And it was just really cheesy at points, and again, I don't know, I found it really fun, and I read the whole book in not that much time. At least for me it was only a few days, even though I think for most people this would be a one-sitting read. And I also feel like the strongest part of the book by far were the two afterwords at the end, and they were only like, I don't know, 3 or 4 pages long altogether. So I realized that doesn't seem like a glowing review of the book, but I actually had a really fun reading experience, and I don't know what to make of these kinds of situations a lot of the time. I think going in I expected it to either be very dark and sort of like Out by Natsuo Kirino, or for it to be very anime over the top and a bit more like Confessions by Kanae Minato. And it was definitely a lot more like Confessions. I can't say that I'm someone who generally really notices style that much when I'm reading. I'm a bit of an unsophisticated reader in that way, I suppose. I don't know, but I definitely noticed it a lot in this. There are certain types of books that I notice style in a lot more, and I felt it was clunky. But then I also felt that way with Convenience Store Woman, and a lot of other people just don't seem to feel that way. They think that was, I don't know, well written and flowing and all of that stuff. I found that book a little bit stilted in its writing style. I guess you could say, oh, but that's just an Asian style thing, but I disagree, because I didn't feel like that when I was reading Out by Natsuo Kirino. I didn't feel like that when I was reading Revenge by Yoko Ogawa. So I think I can say at this point, from lots of other things that I've read, there is a style thing there, and it feels a little clunky for me personally. So if you do have similar taste in books to me, then you might also feel like the writing here is a little bit clunky. And I would say actually a lot of it comes down, often but not always, to dialogue, as well as character motivations and actions that don't quite feel like they make sense. I wonder with this if it might help for readers to also be somewhat familiar with Japanese culture, somewhat familiar with the idea of Japanese idols, these performers, and also otaku culture, which doesn't come up here in the context that maybe a lot of Westerners might think of it, where otakus are reserved for being just anime related. But I think, and I might be wrong on this, that otaku is just generally a major fan of anything, and I guess these would be idol otaku, and it's just kind of that fan that goes a bit far in how much they like a thing, basically. I would recommend this book to a fair few people, actually. I think it is a fun read. I think I would definitely recommend it to anyone who liked Confessions, and I would recommend it to anyone who likes slightly cheesy anime, or just maybe not cheesy but like really intense anime. And anyone who just likes Japanese culture and wants to read a quick book that feels like it's sort of, in that ambience. And this was a really fun one, but not necessarily a serious deep dive into anything, and I feel like it maybe wanted to be that, but it just wasn't. Would I read another book by this author? Probably, but I think it's not like a it's not a cerebral read, in my opinion. Having read that, and I did enjoy it, but it also felt like I can't objectively say that it was a great book necessarily. I thought that I would read something else from Honford Star as well, and so I've picked up Tower by Bae Myung-Hoon, translated by Sung Ryu, and this one I am really enjoying. Its style of humor is one that I really get on with. I just finished reading The Curious Case of Dassoukine's Trousers for Invisible Cities, and that was a short story collection that was quite humorous. I'm going to do a review on that at some point, and this feels in a similar vein. There's slightly different things going on there, but I think if you liked that, you'll like this. That said, I've only got through the first chapter, which is the first story, because this is also a set of short stories, but all of the stories are interlinked. So to summarize, it is a set of short stories exploring little vignettes of situations or people's lives that are all taking place in this one city of 500,000 people, where the city is a massive skyscraper. That to me is just so interesting. It feels a little bit like the film Snowpiercer or other films of that kind of nature, where you have an entire country on a vehicle or a building or whatever, and there's like different social strata that are in different parts of it or whatever. If you like anything like that, then I think this might be worth considering picking up. I don't think I'm going to finish it by the end of the month, which is why I'm just talking about it now as part of my indie press project wrap up, but I can tell that it's one that I'm really getting on with, and I thought I would mention it here because I feel like this one is more intentionally humorous, and the other one was, it felt a little accidentally wacky, and it was supposed to be, maybe not. I'm not entirely sure, but I feel like I shouldn't be having to ask that question probably. Like, is Astral Season Beastly Season trying to make me laugh or no? Like, I shouldn't be having to ask, I think. But this is a publisher that I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on. They specialize in translations from the East Asian region, and that's an area that interests me anyway. They seem to have quite a range of genres, so that's me for our indie press project this month. And if you want to join us next month, I think we're doing Counterpoint Press. Feel free to join us in reading and exploring from that publisher, as well as, if you want to, doing a video or blog or anything like that, reviewing the book that you chose to read, because that's always interesting to see what other people have picked up from the same publisher. This was an interesting one as well because it is such a small publisher that I think we had a few people reading the same book, and that's always interesting to see what different people make of it, whereas some of the other publishers are so big that you're much less likely to read the same thing from someone else, and a lot of the time you find a new book and it's like, oh, I didn't even know that they'd published that, and that sounds great, I might pick that up later. Anyway, that's all I have to say for now, so I'll see you again next time. Bye.